everyone, my name is Nanami Ishizuka at Omajaki High School, and today I will be talking about the humanness of Dracula. But in the first place, when you hear the word Dracula, what comes to your mind? This is the image you may probably have in your mind. Dracula refers to the character of Dracula, written by an Irish writer, Bram Stoker, in 1897, which is one of the Gothic romance novels. In this story, Dracula comes to London from Transylvania in Romania and sucks people's blood. So, what does it mean for Dracula to come to London and attack people? Let's look at the literature review of how this story is interpreted. Tanji argues that Dracula reflects the unconscious xenophobia, which means unconscious fears of foreign countries and foreigners. Dracula from Eastern Europe represents a large number of immigrants who came to London at the end of the 19th century. And he also represents foreign countries in Europe that were gradually gaining power. Other researchers suggested that Dracula is a boundary disruptor of a lot of binary oppositions, such as man and woman, rational and sensual, those who colonize and those who are colonized. Dracula portrays the British fears of having their boundaries broken by others. A lot of previous studies have described the fears of Dracula as a horrible villain. And he is portrayed as a monster who crawls down and sucks people's blood. However, Dracula seems to have some human emotions in this book. There is a line that implies he's anxious about what others will think of him. When you read this line, this might give you an impression that he's very concerned about being treated as a stranger in London. It makes me wonder why Dracula, that is so alien and terrifying, said this kind of human-like word. Previous studies have shown Dracula's monster side, while the present study will show you his human side. It may allow us to see more about the fears of England and or the feelings of the people represented in Dracula. Here are research questions. The first research question is, what lies behind the humanness of Dracula? And the second one is, why did the author, Bram Stoker, give human emotions to this horrible villain? The approach to this study is to review previous studies and find an aspect that connects to the human side of Dracula. As I have just mentioned, Dracula has been considered to go back and forth, or in other words, he's ambiguous between a lot of binary oppositions. So the first thing I did in the study was to suppose that the ambiguity, especially in sexuality, and the colonizer and colonized might affect human identities brings the humanness to Dracula. Let's start by examining sexuality and colonizer and colonized. First, I'll talk about the sexuality. Buddha mentioned that two sexualities can be seen in Dracula, heterosexual and homosexual. Dracula only attacks women in this story. However, when Jonathan, a young English lawyer, was about to be attacked by 3 female vampires, Dracula said, "How dare you touch him? How dare you cast eyes on him? This man belongs to me." This line implies that he also had a sense of intimacy for Jonathan. This seems to be similar to the author Bram Stoker. Buddha noted, Stoker also had two sides to himself. He got married with Florence Balcom, a former lover of his friend, Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde is a famous Irish writer who was arrested for homosexuality. And he also considered to be in love with an actor, Henry Irving. Stoker worked for him as a manager and secretary. The second similarity is the ambiguity between colonizer and colonized. Transylvania with the Castle Dracula is described as one of the wildest and least known portions of Europe. It seems that it is depicted like the colonies of the Great Britain at the time. However, Dracula said, "I have been so long master that I would be master still," which implies that he also had a face of colonizer who came from a barbaric place to invade London. Dracula reflects both the colonizer and colonized figure. It is also pointed out that the author Bram Stoker was a member of ruling and ruled people. At the end of the 19th century, Ireland was still a part of the United Kingdom. And Stoker had an Anglo-Protestant father who originated from England and the native Celtic mother. Stoker's identity belonged to both the ruling and ruled classes. Dracula may be a reflection of the author Bram Stoker. Stoker and Dracula were similar in terms of ambiguous in identity, but they also had something else in common. That was oppressed and silenced. Let me show you what I mean. Although this novel is about Dracula, most of the narrative is made up of diaries and letters written by English people. And Dracula never tells the story by himself. He's forced to remain silent despite the main character. Moreover, at the end of the story, he's killed by the man he loves. This may be the Stoker's figure as an Irish and homosexual. Ireland at that time was ruled by England and had no self-governing rights. Also, as I mentioned, Stoker was homosexual, which was still regarded as a crime in Victorian society. Stoker fell in love with Agin and hoping for respect for the relationship between an actor and manager. However, in fact, Alvin clearly had more power over Stoker, and his love was not fulfilled. The humanness of Dracula may be a result of the Stoker's situation and anxiety as homosexual and Irish. Let's wrap up this study in light of the research questions. Answer to research question 1 is, the humanness came from the ambiguity of Stoker's own identity and oppressed and silenced situation as homosexual and the Irish in the Victorian Britain. Answer to research question 2 is, Bram Stoker gave human emotion to Dracula in order to express his own complexity and ambiguity in his novel. In conclusion, previous studies this study investigated the human side of Dracula, and I found that the sexuality and the colonizer and colonized bring the humanness to Dracula. Stoker and Dracula were both ambiguous in identities and oppressed and silenced. Dracula was a reflection of Bram Stoker, which he tried to express in his novel. As is done in this study, there might be humanness of other monsters in other Gothic romance novels, such as Frankenstein. And if you could study more about the humanness of other monsters, it might give new interpretation to the whole genre of Gothic romance novels. These are the references. Thank you for listening.
ありがとうございました。次に審査員による質疑応答に入ります。時間は10分です。それでは始めてください。
May I ask a question?
Yes?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very clear, and especially because you started with the contrast between previous research and also your own research, and then it became clear that what you it was clear what you wanted to focus on. Then you focused on the analogy and the similarity between Dracula as a character and also Stoker himself, the writer, and it is very interesting, I thought. My question is about your the fact related to your first question, which is what lies behind the humanity or humanness of Dracula. And your answers were ambiguity in sexual identity and also oppression and silence, and these two elements. I wonder why these two are so important for understanding humanity or something like that, because it seems to me that there are many other elements of humanity that have some rationality and also many other emotions and many other things. Why did you pick up these two particular elements for understanding this novel and also the writer, the scripter?
Yes, because I found only these two things in this study, then I think this is the limitation of this study, and I wanted to study more about the other human elements in Dracula.
Can you give me some examples? Maybe you're thinking now, or maybe that's a task if later.
Yes. Maybe this those two things is are both negative mind, but I would like to study more about the happy feelings of people, human. Yeah, but it might be challenging because this novel is horror-gothic novel. So yeah, but yeah, I want to study.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, okay. May I ask? Yes. I felt it's the same kind of question as Professor Iwata. And I was convinced by your presentation that Dracula is a reflection of Stoker. It is very well explained. However, you were saying as humanness is generally humanity, people, human beings in general. Can you say just only address or be silenced or just ambiguity, sexuality? So probably if you had shown that you studied about humanness in other literatures and show it, and the humanness are shown in this way. So I took up, especially this part and this feature, as the theme of this research. Then it might have increased the persuasive of your conclusion. But suddenly, humanness is just represented. Only these your breast and homosexuality or ambiguity in sexuality. So it's a kind of answer. Why humanness is breast only in these keywords? That was my question.
I think there are more elements of the humanness that my first impression of Dracula was so strong and so alien and terrifying, and he seems so monster. But there are some ambiguity or the oppressed mind in Dracula, and I felt this kind of feelings might connect to the humanness. But yeah, actually there must be other elements of humanness.
Okay, thank you. I thought you may be influenced somewhat by Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just imagined. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございました。このドラクラになぜその興味を持ったのか、いつ読んで、そもそも興味を持つようになったのかっていうのが非常に興味があるのと、それから一般的にその、小説なりそこの主人公っていうのは作者をこう表しているっていうのは一般的に多いわけですよね。よく言われます。で、その研究っていうのがこれまでなかったんですか？ その辺はいろいろ調べた結果として、そういうのがなかったからそれをやろうということだったのかということをちょっとお聞きしたいな。
まず一つ目の質問に答えると、私がバレエの作品でドラキュラというものをこの、舞台を見に行った時に小さかったんですけども、すごくミステリアスなキャラクターっていうものにすごく興味を惹かれていて、で少し大きくなってからもう小説を読んだ時に、またやっぱりそのキャラクターっていうものですね、ドラキュラっていう、登場人物にすごく惹かれたので、そのバックグラウンドを見てみたいなっていうことで研究を始めました。で、2つ目の質問、
で言えば、作者と主人公というのは、
はい、
結構愛に通じるところが多い。
はい。
それの先行研究はなかった。
先行研究でブラムストーカーについて研究されている方は何人かいらっしゃるんですけれども、全面的に、そのブラムストーカーとドラキュラを比較して、いろんな観点から見ていったような、研究は私は、見つけられなくて、ただ部分的にですね、セクシュアリティの部分でこういう、背景があって、こういうホモセクシュアリティを持っていたから、その小説のシーンでもホモセクシュアルなことが含まれてるんじゃないかだったりとか、そういった部分での研究は見つけられました。
あと今後フランケンシュタインみたいなのもちょっと研究してみたいと言われたんですけど、ドラキュラあるいは当時の時代背景というものに興味を持ったということではなくて、いわゆる少し怪人と言われるようなものについて、今後調べていきたいということなんですかね。それとも今回の研究にある、アイルランドとイギリスの時代背景的なもの、あるいはストーカーというそういったことを調べたいということよりも、怪人に興味を持つという理解でいいですか？
はい、これに関しては、少しどちらもっていう答えになっちゃうかもしれないんですが、さっき言ったようなゴシックロマンス、小説っていうのが18から19世紀のヨーロッパで流行ったものでして、その中にすごく多くそういった怪人といいます怪物が出てきていて、多分おそらく同じ時代にできているので、同じような時代背景が投影されていることもあったりすると思います。で、この研究をやり始めて、そういった背景にすごく興味を持つようになったので、同じその時代の同じジャンルを調べてみたいと思いました。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。以上で5番目の発表を終了します。審査員の方は審査結果に説明をお願いします。次の発表者の方は準備を始めてください。